Welcome to week 3 of our Everyday Word Bible study. I hope things are going well for you, and we're going to be looking at a familiar section, but I have a feeling there can be a few surprises in there that you might have caught or not caught, because again, we get this in Sunday school, and we get kind of clean stories here and there, and yet there's some other things that just kind of slip in there. So let's start out. Looking at Genesis 23, we see the death of Sarah. So again, Abraham is a nomad, so he has to go to Ephraim the Hittite and ask to buy land to have Sarah buried. So she was buried just east of Mamre, which would be Hebron later on. So if you basically go right to the middle of the Dead Sea, go exactly west, you would hit Hebron, and slightly east would be the burial place of Sarah and then eventually Abraham as well. Right after that, Abraham takes a servant. It's interesting that we're not given the servant's name, just a servant of Abraham, and makes him pledge a covenant that he would go and find a wife from Isaac. Not from the people around there he was, but rather back to Haran where the family was. Now, this is not the idea of kind of a monarchy and you have to marry into the family. It had more to do with religion. If you remember in the Old Testament, it was always said, don't marry the foreigner and the wives of the foreigners because they worshipped other false gods and they would lead your heart away. So he was looking for someone who would be a believer in the true God, and thus being a believer in the true God would not draw his son's heart away, and that he would remain faithful to God as well. So the servant goes. And as he's approaching Haran, he asks the Lord to give a sign. That the sign would be that when he goes to the well and asks for water for himself, that the woman that God has chosen would also ask to water his animals as well. So he goes. And a beautiful young lady, Rebecca, comes out. And guess what? She not only says, can I give you water, but also, may I water your animals as well? So he asks, who are you? Whose daughter are you? Bethuel. Ah, the same family. Here we go. Take me to your family. And he explains his errand, and he goes. And this is where we're introduced to Laban, Rebecca's brother. And even in that first introduction, you kind of get the idea he's a little shady and he's a little greedy. Because it mentions that he noticed everything, all the adornments, all the things that were given to Rebecca, and they were wealthy. I get to get something out of this, right? And so he goes to the family. And back then, you didn't have the hallmark, oh, we fell in love and then we got married. These were arranged marriages. And so you go to the head of the household and you ask, can I have this arranged marriage? And this is who I am. And Abraham, you know Abraham, yep, you related to him. He left a while back. He needs a wife for his son, Isaac. Will Rebecca come and be his wife? And they decide that she will. So the next day, he begins to prepare to leave, and they're like, can't you wait a few days? And he's like, no, Abraham is old. I was given this mission. I need to get out of here. If the Lord pleases, let the woman come with me. They're a little put back by this. Can't you wait 10 days, whatever? But they decide, okay, let's ask Rebecca. Now, Rebecca has never been to this land, never met this person, and yet she says, yes, I will go and marry Isaac. And so they leave that very day. And they head back, and they're coming back to Abraham and to his family. And as she's coming close, oh my, do you see that handsome hunk out in the field working? Oh, who is that guy? Well, that's my master's son, the one you're going to marry. And so she gets off her camel and she makes herself presentable. And Isaac, when he sees her, oh, his little heart begins pattering. And you can see a wonderful love relationship happening. And they're going to become husband and wife. The Lord had planned this out, and Rebecca would become Isaac's wife. Now, I got to pause here for just a second. If you know me, I'm known for bad jokes, good jokes, I don't know. But this is a classic we just can't go by. So, in the Old Testament, does it talk about people smoking cigarettes. So you have to use the King James Version. But if you look at the King James Version, chapter 24, verse 64, it says that upon seeing Isaac, Rebekah lighted off her camel. I guess cigarettes were there, camel cigarettes, and she lighted hers. All right, bad joke, but we'll continue on. So we see that the two got married, and they lived happily ever after. Well, not quite. Isaac asked the Lord to bless their marriage and to give them children. And of course, they are going to have children. Did you realize they had to wait 20 years? They waited and waited and waited. And finally, Rebekah gets pregnant. Not with one, but with two children. She is going to have twins, Esau and Jacob. And she says, even before birth, you could feel the two struggling inside. For God had told her that there would be two great nations within her, and that they would struggle against each other, and that the older would serve the younger. Interesting. We'll see how that plays out. Now, if you don't know me, I'm also an identical twin. And my mom says that when she was pregnant with us, the last couple of months, it seemed like my brother Mark and I were having soccer matches within her womb as we kept kicking against each other. So I guess she knew what Rebekah was going through. So she gave birth. And you have Esau and Jacob. But they couldn't be any more different. You have Esau being the wild man, the man that liked being out in nature, that liked hunting, liked the husbandry and all the things that went with that. And you had Jacob, who was, well, in today's language, mama's boy. Liked to hang around the tents, liked to cook, liked to do domestic things. They couldn't be any more different. And then you also see this other thing happening. They get older, and Esau marries two Hittite women. And there's just that one little phrase in there, but I'm sure some of you have experienced it. They didn't get along very well with the in-laws. It says that these two Hittite women caused Isaac and Rebekah all kinds of problems. Abraham is still alive. Now he's about to die. And as he dies, we see that he is buried with Sarah. But before he does, again, just a few verses in the Bible that you haven't probably picked up upon. But another trivia question. So who was Abraham's third wife? I'm sure you all know the first two. Sarah, his long-standing wife. And then, of course, Ishmael, her mistress that was given to him to have a child by. And so Hagar gave birth to Ishmael. And that caused all kinds of problems. And then after Sarah dies, there's just this little phrase that to comfort him in his old age, he took a third wife, Keturah. Now, the next question would be this. How many sons did Abraham have? Well, two, right? Isaac and Ishmael. We all know that from Sunday school. Except that he gave 6 sons to Keturah. So the sons of Abraham are these. You have Ishmael from Hagar, you have Isaac from Sarah, and then for Keturah you have Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. When God said that he was going to make of Abraham a great nation, and that his descendants would be as the stars of the sky and as the sands of the sea, these would, many of them, become great nations in the area of Palestine and Canaan. And so you see, Abraham had 8 sons. When he dies, Isaac takes him and buries him at Mamre with Sarah. Now we continue the story with Esau and Isaac. God comes to Isaac again, and he redoes the promise. He reassures him that he is with him, that he will bless him, and that all who bless him will be blessed, and all who curse him will be cursed. God will continue the line through Isaac. And I would say that Isaac, of all the patriarchs, was kind of the white sheep. He was one that was a good one and never got in trouble except for one little thing that happens in chapter 26. Just like Abraham, a famine comes And God says, don't go down to Egypt, go to the Philistines. And he does. And he has that same issue. Well, I have this beautiful young wife. By the way, Rebekah would have been her first cousin once removed. In other words, Bethuel and Isaac would be first cousins, and Bethuel's daughter, Rebekah, Isaac's wife, would be once removed, one generation removed. So she probably would have been younger than Isaac. And so, guess what happens? Well, Rebekah, tell them that you're my sister, not my wife, just in case they kill me and take you. The same thing Abraham did twice, now Isaac does. But it's called a little bit earlier, and Abimelech scolds him and says, why are you trying to do this? And again, God blesses him 100-fold. Isaac becomes a very wealthy man as he lives in the region of the Philistines. Now Isaac is getting old, and it's time for him to pass on the torch. And so he calls Esau, his son, and he says, I'm near death. Go catch me some game, the kind that I like, prepare it like I want it, and give it to me, and I will give you the blessing. Now, Rebekah had a different plan. One, remember God had said that the older would serve the younger. And then she was also around when Esau came in from the field one day from hunting game and was so hungry. And Jacob had cooked this wonderful meal, this soup, and he sells his birthright. And Rebekah had heard it. And so she schemes. And she tells Jacob, here, you go and pretend that you're your brother, and you get the birthright and the blessing. Now, Jacob was a little like, I don't want to. If I'm found out, I'm going to get cursed. This doesn't sound like a good idea, but his mom persuades him. So he goes and puts on Esau's clothes, so he smells like Esau. Any of you have been around a campfire, it's hard to get that smell off, and husbandry and animals, yep, that's going to be smelling like it too. So he would smell like Esau. And then his mother prepared a dish just like Isaac liked it. And then, but I have smooth skin. You put the wools on. Yep, the lamb's wool. And if he touches you, he won't know. And the plan works. Isaac is a little bit suspicious, but he smells the clothes. He tastes the food. He feels the arm. Eventually he consents, and he gives to Jacob the birthright and the blessing. Then comes Esau. He prepares everything. He goes, he's ready to do it, and he brings it to his father, and his father goes, who are you? I'm Esau. And suddenly it dawns on both of them what had happened. Jacob had come in and stolen the birthright and the blessing. And he pleads with the father, give me something. Now, today, when you have a will and you have your inheritance go to the family, usually you kind of divide it equally between all of the children. But back then, it wasn't that case. The eldest got the birthright. That was everything. The other children might get a little bit, but it was the birthright, the eldest, that got everything and continued on the clan. That had gone to Jacob. The blessing that included the covenant with God and that the Messiah would come from that line also went to Jacob. He pleads and he does get a blessing. It's not the one exactly he's looking for, but that he would become a great nation and that he would struggle against his brother and break the yoke of his neck. In other words, he would break free of his brother's rule. And that would happen a lot sooner than expected. For you see, Isaac is about to die, and Esau is spitting nails. He is mad. And he's talking with his other servants, and he's talking murder. And so Rebekah comes and says to Isaac, send your son away, that he might get a wife from back in Haran. And Jacob flees just in time. Isaac dies. Esau literally takes everything. Jacob's gone. Now he's had the clan. He's going to take everything. And Jacob flees. And on his way to Haran, that's when God comes to him. You remember Jacob's ladder? There at Bethel, God comes to him and reassures him and says, I will be with you. And he sees that ladder going up to heaven and the angels going up and down. And if Bethel seems a familiar name to you, it's because of the New Testament. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus were from Bethel. That was their hometown. And we also see that Jesus, in his last week of his life, all during Holy Week, every night he'd go out to Bethel, and that's where he would spend the night. And so Jacob goes. He goes to Haran. He goes to Laban, which would have been Rebekah's brother. And Laban has a very beautiful daughter, Rachel. You know, once again, oh, the pitter-patter, yes, I will work 7 years for her hand in marriage. All right. It says those days went like nothing. He worked hard. Again, the Lord prospered him, and the day comes. He is going to marry the love of his life, the beautiful Rachel. And he wakes up in the morning, and it's the ugly Leah, not the beautiful Rachel. Laban had tricked him. Well, in our custom, you can't marry the younger before the older is married, so you had to marry the older one first. All right. So Rachel gets married to him for another 7 years of service, although he's able to take her as his wife right away. And the Lord blesses him. And now you have the whole birth competition. You have Leah, you have Rachel. Rachel's barren, Leah starts popping out kids. But Rachel's not happy. So he gives Bilhah, her servant, just like Hagar for Abraham, to have children by her name, even though she's not bearing them. And then when Leah stops giving, and then Zilpah is given to her, her servant, and it goes on and on and on, till eventually you have 11. I know there's going to be 12, but we're not there just yet. So you have Reuben and Simeon and Levi and Judah and Issachar and Zebulun from Leah. From Leah's servant Zilpah, you have Gad and Asher. From Bilhah, Rachel's servant, you have Dan and Naphtali. And from Rachel, you have Joseph. And a little bit later, when they actually get back into the land of Canaan, she'll give birth to Benjamin. There you have it. The 12 tribes of Israel, but again, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Then the Lord comes and says to Jacob, it's time to go. But it's interesting, a couple things there. What? The angel of the Lord comes to him. You remember we came across the angel of the Lord before. And again, I said this was probably Jesus, second person of the Trinity, coming in the form of the angel of the Lord. Because what does he say? Well, if we look it up, the angel of the Lord comes to him, and he says to him, 2 more pages here, sorry. I am the God of Bethel, the one who came to you in the dream. I am God, the angel of the Lord. And he reestablishes him the covenant that, yes, he's going to be with them and that he's going to bless them. And it's time to leave Laban and it's time to head back to Esau and to the land of Canaan. So he chooses to do so. But again, we have Laban to deal with. Laban is not necessarily the most scrupulous person. We know the problems he had. We know the greed that he has. He knows the problems he's caused. So Jacob kind of takes off in the middle of the night, gets a head start and heads off. Only one problem. His wife Rachel takes the household gods. Again, not only was he greedy and things like that, but apparently he had also gone to the false worship of the people around him. And so Rachel takes those household gods, thinking they'll be a blessing to her. And they follow and they catch up and they search. And Rachel, who is now pregnant, says, I can't really move. And she's hiding and sitting on them. And when he doesn't find them, he lets them go. Partly because God had warned him. Hey, I'm with this guy. You don't want to mess with him. And he tells Jacob that. The Lord has said, I have power to harm you, but I can't. Go your way. So he does. And he heads back to Canaan. And now he's going to meet Esau again. It's been many years. Been a couple decades. I wonder if he's still angry. Don't know. We'll have to see. So he waits and doesn't cross the Jordan right away. He's waiting for him, and lo and behold, what happens? The Lord comes to him. And that's when you have this wrestling match. That's when you have the Lord coming down, and he wrestles with Jacob. And they wrestle all night, and neither one is winning. And then, I don't know, say God cheated, he touches his hip goes out of place, he can't wrestle anymore, but he still clings and holds on to the ankle. I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. And so the Lord blesses him and changes his name and calls him the name Israel, which means he who struggles with God. That would be the name of the nation that would come from his 12 sons. And what a fitting name. Those who wrestle with God. Because if you know the rest of the Old Testament, it's a continual struggle between what God's asking and what the people want, and going back and forth between their sinfulness and God's forgiveness and the like. But here comes the name Israel. So the next day, he heads out. And he crosses and he's going to meet Esau. But you see his favoritism. He arranges everybody so that Leah, and first the two servants, and then Leah and all their kids go first. And who's last? Yeah, Rachel and Joseph. So in case they're attacked, they might have a chance to flee. And he hears that Esau is coming out with a large group. He already sent to them a little present. Hey, look, I got some presents for you. Hopefully kind of smooth over the waters. I'm sure some of you have had similar situations where you've had family members who have gotten into a fight and haven't talked for years, and finally they're reconciled, and the family can kind of be at peace again. When Esau comes, there's no battle. There's no fighting. He runs and he embraces him and he kisses him and he hugs him. They're back. The family is one. And he says, you don't have to give me all these things. The Lord has greatly blessed me. I'm a very wealthy man. And Jacob says, so am I. Keep it. The Lord has blessed both of them, and they'll become two great nations, and they're reconciled. And so the family is back again. Then we see eventually that they have this family, and they're going on, and then you have this issue. You see, one of the princes of the land, and again, it's good to be king, you take whatever you want, sees the beautiful daughter of Leah. And he goes and he rapes her, and then afterwards feels bad because he really kind of likes her, and talks softly to her and says, hey, why don't you come and be part of my harem? And then he makes an appeal to Jacob. Jacob's sons aren't there right then, so he doesn't want to cause any fuss until he has backup. And when his sons come, they hatch this plan. So you really want to marry our daughter, huh? Well, you know what? We're Israelites, and we have to be circumcised. If you want to, you and your whole clan have to be circumcised. So they are. And on the third day, after not feeling so good, because, it kind of doesn't feel really good and takes a while for it to heal up, they attack them and kill them all by the sword. Justice or trickery? I'll leave that up to you. But something interesting to point out. America is a little bit different. Throughout history and at that time, it was not the state that charged somebody, it was the victim's family. They're the ones that decided, and they're the ones that would take vengeance. In the United States, you are charged not by the family, but by the state. And the state, as an impartial mediator, is the one that decides to or not. And so it's interesting. It's a little bit different culture there. And again, America is quite different than many parts of the world, even today. Then lastly, God comes again, and he tells Jacob, again, your name shall be Israel, and I will make of you a great nation. And Rachel gives birth to Benjamin, and in childbirth, as many times happened back then, she ends up having a hard labor, dying in childbirth, and Benjamin is born. And now we have the 12th. Now we have the 12th son. Rachel is dead. Now we have Jacob and Israel, and we're also at the end of this week's lessons. So we're going to be moving on to Joseph next week. But again, we hope you enjoy these things and learn a few things. Again, I ask you to please send me questions. Here's my email. You're welcome to send me any question that you have. I would love to answer them for you. May you have a good day.